Hey everyone, it's Olivia here. I wanted to share something with you all today, something that really tugged at my heartstrings. You know those moments when something seemingly small just washes over you with a wave of emotion? Well, that's exactly what happened to me earlier. I was scrolling through my phone gallery, just idly looking through pictures, and I stumbled across this old photo. Honestly, it felt like time stopped for a moment. The photo itself isn't anything extraordinary, just a simple snapshot, but it captured a moment in time so perfectly that it brought back a flood of memories. It was one of those warm, fuzzy feelings, so soothing and peaceful. I was instantly transported back to that day, remembering the laughter, the conversations, and the feeling of pure joy. It's amazing how a single image can hold so much power, isn't it? I thought I would share this little nostalgic journey with you. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together. And remember, new videos are released daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so, grab a cup of something warm, settle in, because I have a story for you. It's about my first time ever leaving my little bubble, my home country, and landing smack dab in the middle of, well, you'll see. It's about that beautiful, messy, exhilarating chaos of experiencing a new culture for the very first time. I was 20, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and armed with a backpack bigger than my torso and a phrasebook thicker than my skull. My destination? Italy. Yes, Italy. The land of pasta, pizza, and, well, honestly, that's all I really knew about it back then. You know, the stereotypical touristy stuff. I was ridiculously excited, naturally. Nervous too, a kind of fluttering in the stomach, nervous, but mostly excited. The flight itself was an experience. I'd never flown before, so everything was new and fascinating. The tiny packets of pretzels, the weird recirculated air, the little window showing the world shrinking below. I remember pressing my face against the glass, watching the clouds morph into cotton candy mountains, thinking, wow, I'm actually doing this. Landing in Rome was sensory overload, to put it mildly. The air, thick with the scent of something I couldn't quite place, a mix of exhaust fumes, hot pavement, and something subtly sweet, maybe blossoms? I don't know. But it was different. Everything was different. The sounds, a cacophony of car horns, chattering voices in a language I barely understood, the rumble of scooters zipping past. The sights, vibrant colors, ancient buildings jostling against modern storefronts, clotheslines strung across narrow alleyways. My hostel was tucked away in a maze of cobblestone streets, a charming little place with peeling paint and a rickety staircase that creaked with every step. My room was tiny, just a bed and a small window overlooking a courtyard, but I loved it. It felt authentic, real. That first evening, I decided to be brave. I ventured out, armed with my phrasebook and a shaky smile, determined to experience real Italian cuisine. I found a small trattoria, tucked away down a side street, filled with locals, families laughing, couples whispering, old men playing cards. The air hummed with conversation and the clinking of glasses. It was intimidating. I sat down at a wobbly table, feeling utterly out of place. The menu, of course, was entirely in Italian. I panicked. My carefully rehearsed phrases flew out the window. I fumbled with my phrasebook, my face burning. The waiter, a kind-looking man with a handlebar mustache, patiently waited. Finally, I pointed at something on the menu, a picture of pasta with something. I had no idea what the something was. He smiled, nodded, and bustled off. While I waited, I watched the other diners. Their easy laughter, their animated gestures, the way they effortlessly navigated the language. I felt a pang of longing, a wish to be part of this world, to understand the rhythm of their conversations. Then, the food arrived. Oh, the food. It was a simple dish, spaghetti aglio e olio, I learned later. But it was revelatory. The pasta, perfectly al dente, coated in fragrant garlic and olive oil, with a hint of chili flakes. It was unlike anything I'd ever tasted. I devoured it, every last strand, feeling a warmth spread through me, not just from the food, but from the atmosphere, the experience. Emboldened by my culinary success, I decided to explore. I wandered through the streets, getting delightfully lost, discovering hidden piazzas, marveling at ancient fountains. I stumbled upon the Trevi Fountain, bathed in golden light, and felt a wave of emotion wash over me. It was magical. I tossed a coin in, making a wish, a silly, hopeful wish that I could somehow stay in this magical place forever. Of course, there were mishaps. Plenty of them. I accidentally ordered a whole fish, head and all, staring back at me with accusing eyes. I couldn't bring myself to eat it, felt terribly guilty, and ended up feeding it to a stray cat. I tried to ask for directions in broken Italian and ended up being directed to a shoe store instead of the Colosseum. I got completely and utterly lost on the metro, ending up miles from where I intended to go. But even the mistakes were enriching. They were part of the experience. They forced me to step outside my comfort zone, to rely on the kindness of strangers, to embrace the unexpected. You know what I mean? It's like, when you're thrown into the deep end, you either sink or swim. And I, surprisingly, swam. I learned to laugh at myself, to embrace the chaos, to find joy in the little things, a shared smile with a street vendor, a perfectly brewed cappuccino, the sound of church bells echoing through the morning air. One evening, I found myself in a tiny piazza, watching children play soccer. An old woman sat nearby, selling flowers. She smiled at me, offering me a single rose. I didn't understand her words, but I understood her gesture. I bought the rose, and she, in turn, offered me a piece of biscotti. We sat there, side by side, watching the children play, sharing a silent moment of connection. It was a small thing, but it felt profound. It's funny, isn't it? How the smallest moments can sometimes have the biggest impact. That trip to Italy, it wasn't just about seeing the sights, ticking things off a checklist. It was about the feeling. The feeling of being completely out of my element, yet somehow, strangely, at home. The feeling of connection, even without words. The feeling of being alive, truly alive, in a way I hadn't been before. That first trip, it changed me. It opened my eyes to a world beyond my own, a world full of different cultures, different perspectives, different ways of being. It ignited a wanderlust in me, a thirst for exploration that I still carry with me today. And it taught me that even when you're lost, even when you're making mistakes, even when you're surrounded by chaos, there's beauty to be found. There's connection to be made. There's a whole world out there, just waiting to be discovered. And honestly, there's nothing quite like that feeling of stepping into the unknown and realizing, you can do it. You can navigate the chaos. You can find your way. And you might even surprise yourself along the way. So, yeah, that's my Italy story. It's just the beginning, really. There are so many other stories, so many other adventures, but that one, that first one, it holds a special place in my heart. It's where it all began. So, what about you? Any travel tales you want to share? I'm all ears. Okay, so, you are never going to believe this. I mean, seriously, never. It involves dust bunnies the size of small rodents, a forgotten corner of the attic, and a notebook that, well, let's just say it unlocked a whole flood of memories I didn't even know I'd forgotten. Grab a cuppa, because this is a good one. You see, we're finally getting around to clearing out my grandma's attic. She moved in with us a few years back, and, bless her heart, she's a bit of a collector. Let's just leave it at that. So, this attic is a time capsule. Seriously, it's like stepping into a different dimension. There are boxes overflowing with everything you can imagine, old photos, vintage clothes, hat boxes piled to the ceiling. It's amazing and overwhelming all at once. So, there I was, Saturday morning, armed with a dust mask, absolutely essential, trust me, the air up there was thick with history, and a resolve to tackle at least one corner of this mountainous mess. My husband, bless his practical soul, was tackling the garden shed, leaving me to the dusty depths of the attic. The sun was streaming in through the single, dusty window, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air. You know that kind of light, right? The kind that makes everything look a little bit magical, even piles of old newspapers and moth-eaten blankets. It smelled, well, old. That distinct attic smell of dried wood, aged paper, and a hint of something almost sweet. Like forgotten potpourri. I started with a stack of hat boxes. Oh my goodness, the hats. Feathers, flowers, ribbons. I tried a few on, striking poses in the dusty mirror propped against the wall. You would have laughed, I looked like a vintage fashion disaster. I even found a flapper dress. Can you imagine? After the hat boxes, I moved onto a trunk tucked away in a shadowy corner. It was heavy, the kind of heavy that suggests hidden treasures or, more likely, just a lot of really old books. I wrestled with the latch, which finally gave way with a satisfying clunk. Inside, beneath a layer of faded velvet, were stacks of photo albums. I started flipping through them, completely mesmerized. There was my grandma as a young woman, radiant and smiling, dressed in clothes that looked like they'd stepped straight out of a movie. There were photos of family gatherings, birthday parties, holidays, a whole life captured in faded sepia tones. I must have spent an hour lost in those albums. Time just vanished. I was so absorbed that I didn't even hear my husband calling me from downstairs. Eventually, I realized how late it was. The sun was starting to set, casting long, dramatic shadows across the attic. I closed the trunk, a little sad to leave the world of those photographs behind, and decided to tackle just one more area before calling it a day. That's when I saw it. Tucked behind a stack of dusty quilts, in the furthest, darkest corner of the attic, was a small, wooden chest. It wasn't fancy, just plain, unvarnished wood. I hadn't noticed it before. It was almost like it had appeared out of nowhere. Intrigued, I pulled it out. It was surprisingly light. I lifted the lid, and you won't believe what was inside. Not jewels, not gold, not even more old photographs. Just a single, dusty notebook. A plain, spiral-bound notebook with a faded blue cover. It looked ordinary, almost disappointingly so, but something about it drew me in. I picked it up. The cover felt soft and worn, the spiral binding slightly rusty. I carefully opened it. The first page was blank. Then the second. Then the third. I started to feel a little deflated. Another empty notebook, I thought. What a letdown. But then, on the fourth page, I saw something. Faint pencil marks. I held the notebook closer to the fading light from the window, squinting. Slowly, words began to emerge. It was handwriting. My handwriting. And then, it hit me. Like a wave crashing over me. I recognized this notebook. This was my diary. My teenage diary. The one I thought I'd lost years ago. The one I'd mourned the loss of. The one that contained all my angsty teenage thoughts, dreams, and dramatic pronouncements. Oh my goodness, the cringe. I mean, seriously, teenage diaries are a minefield of embarrassment, right? But also, fascinating. Like a time capsule of your own making. I sat down on a dusty old trunk, completely forgetting about the time, and started to read. And I laughed. And I cringed. And I remembered. I remembered my first crush. Oh, the agonizing details. The hours spent agonizing over what to wear, what to say. It was all there, documented in excruciating detail. I remembered my struggles with algebra. Apparently, I considered it a form of torture. I remembered my dreams of becoming a writer, dreams I'd almost forgotten. Reading those pages, I felt a connection to that younger version of myself. The girl who filled those pages with her hopes and fears, her joys and sorrows. It was like meeting an old friend I hadn't seen in years. A friend I had almost forgotten. It was more than just memories, though. It was a glimpse into my own evolution. Seeing how I thought, how I felt, how I perceived the world back then, it gave me a new perspective on who I am now. The things I've learned, the ways I've grown. The dreams I've chased and the ones I've let go of. And you know what's funny? Some of those teenage anxieties and insecurities, they resonated with me even now. It's like, some things never really change, do they? We just get better at dealing with them. Hopefully. Finding that notebook wasn't just about rediscovering lost memories. It was about rediscovering a part of myself. A part one thought I'd lost somewhere along the way. It was a reminder of how far I've come, and how much I've yet to learn. It was a reminder that even the most embarrassing, angsty teenage thoughts have value. They're a part of our story. A part of who we are. So, yeah, that's the story of how I found a forgotten notebook in a dusty attic. It wasn't treasure in the traditional sense, but it was something far more valuable. It was a piece of my past, a connection to my younger self, and a reminder that even in the dustiest, most forgotten corners of our lives, there can be magic waiting to be rediscovered. Now, tell me, have you ever found anything unexpected like that? I'd love to hear your story. Hey everyone, learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, but you know what? Language isn't difficult, hesitation is. Think about it. Every little step you take, every word you try, brings you closer to the peak. It's the hesitation, that little voice of doubt, that holds us back. So let's ditch the doubt and embrace the journey. You've got this. And you know what's a fun way to practice speaking every day? Explaining your favorite hobby. Honestly, it felt like magic when I started doing this. I love baking, so I'd explain the process to myself while I was measuring ingredients or kneading dough. It doesn't even have to be to a person. Speaking to your pet or even a plant works wonders. It helps you get comfortable with using English vocabulary in a natural way. Plus, it's something you're passionate about, so it makes the practice so much more enjoyable. You can try this while cooking, walking, or just chilling. It's super easy to fit into your daily routine. Do you also find yourself mixing up words or phrases accidentally? It's completely normal. It happens to all of us. I remember once trying to order coffee and completely jumbling the words. I ended up asking for a milk with coffee, instead of a coffee with milk. It's okay to laugh at these little slip-ups. They're just proof that you're trying and learning. They're part of the process. I was just thinking the other day about how much movies have helped me with my own English. It sparked a thought, and I'm curious. Have you tried watching movies without subtitles to improve your English? I remember the first time I did that. I was so surprised by how much I actually understood. It's definitely a challenge, but it's such a rewarding way to immerse yourself in the language. I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Okay, so, you are never going to believe what happened to me the other day. It all started with the shoe rack, that monstrosity in my entryway. You know the one, right? Everyone has one. That chaotic jumble of sneakers, sandals, boots, a silent testament to a busy life, or in my case, a testament to pure laziness. I'd been meaning to tackle it for, well, let's just say it had been a while. It was a Saturday morning, one of those surprisingly sunny Saturdays after a week of gloomy rain. The light streamed in through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, and, unfortunately, highlighting the sheer state of my shoe rack. It was overwhelming. Shoes piled on top of each other, some missing their mates, others looking like they'd wrestled a muddy badger and lost. Honestly, it was a health hazard. I'm pretty sure there was a small, evolving ecosystem thriving in there. I sighed, took a sip of my lukewarm coffee, because, let's be real, who has time to reheat coffee when facing that, and decided, today's the day. I mean, it had to be, right? I couldn't ignore it any longer. My guests were starting to politely avert their eyes when they entered my house. I swear I even saw the mailman flinch once. So, I put on some music, something upbeat and motivating, you know? Think 80s, power ballads, and I started. The first layer was, well, it was archaeological. Ancient flip-flops from a beach trip I couldn't even remember, a single, lone ballet flat. Where was its partner? A mystery for the ages, and a pair of winter boots, in July. Seriously. As I dug deeper, the smell hit me. Oh, the smell. It wasn't terrible, not like a gym locker or anything, but it was a potent blend of old leather, dried mud, and something vaguely floral. Probably from a forgotten sachet tucked into a boot somewhere. It was a smell that told a story of busy days, forgotten errands, and a chronic inability to put things back where they belonged. It was my life in a smell. I unearthed more treasures, or, should I say, artifacts. A child's sparkly sandal, my niece's, from a visit 2 years ago, a pair of heels I'd sworn I'd lost, and mourned, and, believe it or not, a half-eaten granola bar. Don't even ask. I have no explanation. I mean, how does a granola bar even get into a shoe? It's one of life's great unsolved mysteries. I started sorting. Keep, donate, toss. It was surprisingly cathartic. Each shoe held a memory. The worn-out sneakers I'd worn on countless hikes, the elegant heels I'd danced the night away in, the practical flats I'd relied on for everyday adventures. It was like flipping through a photo album, but instead of pictures, it was shoes. And then, I found them. The Holy Grail. The sneakers. The ones I'd been searching for months. My favorite sneakers. The ones that were just the right amount of worn in, the ones that felt like an extension of my own feet. I'd practically given up hope of ever seeing them again. I'd mentally written their eulogy. And there they were, nestled amongst a pile of forgotten slippers, looking a little dusty but otherwise perfect. It was a reunion of epic proportions. I swear, a single tear rolled down my cheek. Okay, maybe it was sweat. It was a hot day. But still, the cleaning itself wasn't glamorous. Buckets of soapy water, a scrub brush, and a lot of elbow grease. But with every swipe, I felt a sense of accomplishment, a sense of order returning to my life. It was more than just cleaning a shoe rack. It was a cleansing of the soul. You know what I mean? The empty rack, once a symbol of chaos, now gleamed. It was beautiful. I carefully placed my shoes back, neatly arranged, each pair in its rightful place. It looked civilized, like something out of a magazine. My entryway had been transformed. It was no longer a source of embarrassment, but a source of pride. But the story doesn't end there. Guess what happened next? I got so inspired by my shoe rack success that I decided to tackle the rest of the entryway. The coat closet, the overflowing basket of scarves, the pile of mail, it all got the same treatment. By the end of the day, my entryway was sparkling. It was unrecognizable. It was, dare I say it, perfect. And the best part? It wasn't just the entryway that had changed. I had changed. I felt lighter, more organized, more in control. It was a small victory, cleaning a shoe rack. But it was a victory nonetheless. It showed me that even small acts of organization can have a big impact. They can create a ripple effect, inspiring you to tackle bigger challenges, to bring order to other areas of your life. It was a reminder that sometimes the simplest things can bring the most satisfaction. So, yeah, that's the story of the day I cleaned the shoe rack. It sounds mundane, I know. But it was more than just cleaning. It was a journey. A journey of rediscovery, of organization, and of finding a half-eaten granola bar in a shoe. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I'm going to go tackle my sock drawer. Wish me luck? Because, let me tell you, that's a whole other story. Okay, so grab a cuppa, settle in, because this story is epic. It's not epic in the, saving the world kind of way. More like an epic battle against, well, let's just say it involved years of accumulated neglect and my car dashboard. You see, my car, bless her little cotton socks, well, she's lived. She's seen things. Things like dropped French fries, the curly kind, the worst kind to retrieve, spilled coffee, the sticky, sugary kind, the stickiest kind, and enough dog hair to knit a small sweater, possibly even a matching hat. And where does all this life debris end up? You guessed it, the dashboard. It had become this archaeological dig site of my life. A sedimentary record of snacks, road trips, and hurried mornings. Like, I swear, if you dug deep enough, you'd find fossilized Cheerios. For years, I just averted my eyes. You know what I mean? Like, if I didn't see the mess, it wasn't really there. It was a kind of willful ignorance, a pact I had with my dashboard. You don't bother me, I don't bother you. But then came the fateful day. It was a Saturday morning, the kind where the sun streams in just perfectly, and the birds are singing, one of those mornings. And for some inexplicable reason, maybe it was the sunshine, maybe the birds, maybe the sheer weight of accumulated grime, I looked at my dashboard, really looked at it, and something inside me snapped. Enough, I declared to the empty car. Today, we conquer this Everest of dust and crumbs. Now, I'm not usually a spontaneous cleaner. I'm more of a, let it pile up until it achieves sentience, kind of cleaner. But this was different. This was a mission. So, I marched into the house, armed with a fierce determination and an arsenal of cleaning supplies. I had microfiber cloths, all-purpose cleaner, a toothbrush, for those hard-to-reach crevices, and even a vacuum cleaner with a special little nozzle attachment. I was ready for war. The first stage, the reconnaissance stage, was daunting. I mean, where do you even begin with something like that? The dashboard was a landscape of sticky patches, dust bunnies the size of small rodents, and a mysterious, unidentified sticky substance that I didn't even want to identify. I started cautiously, with a gentle wipe of the passenger side. The dust came away easily enough, revealing a surprisingly clean surface underneath. Hey, I thought, this might not be so bad after all. Famous last words. As I moved towards the driver's side, things got complicated. The sticky patch, upon closer inspection, appeared to be fossilized honey. Or possibly maple syrup. Or something else entirely. I prodded it cautiously with the toothbrush. It didn't budge. I tried the all-purpose cleaner. Nothing. I tried a stronger cleaner, the kind with the ominous skull and crossbones symbol on the label. Still nothing. This sticky patch was clearly here to stay. I considered my options. I could try scraping it off with a credit card. I could pretend it was a decorative feature. I could even trade in the whole car for a new one. Okay, that last one was a bit extreme, but the thought did cross my mind. In the end, I resorted to brute force, applying elbow grease and some, let's just call it, creative scrubbing techniques. Finally, with a triumphant crack, the sticky patch gave way, leaving behind a slightly discolored area, but, hey, at least it wasn't sticky anymore. The next challenge was the vents. Oh, the vents. Those tiny little slats, perfect for trapping dust, crumbs, and, is that a stray eyelash from 2017? I meticulously went over each vent with the toothbrush, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction as the dust bunnies were vanquished one by one. Then came the crevices. The tiny little gaps between the dashboard and the windshield, between the buttons and the console, each one a miniature ecosystem of its own. This is where the vacuum cleaner nozzle attachment really came into its own, sucking up years of accumulated debris with a satisfying whoosh. As I worked, I started to uncover little treasures. A lost earring, a parking ticket from a trip I'd completely forgotten about, a handful of loose change, enough for a fancy coffee score. It was like an archaeological dig, each artifact a tiny window into my past. I even found a half-eaten granola bar, tucked away behind the glove compartment. Now, I'm not saying it was mine, but let's just say I have a fondness for granola bars, and my memory can be selective. By the time I was finished, the dashboard was sparkling. I mean, sparkling. It was so clean, I almost didn't recognize it. The sun reflected off the surface, blinding me momentarily. It was a revelation. My car, my trusty steed, had been hiding a secret beauty beneath all that grime. But the transformation wasn't just about the car. It was about me, too. It was about finally tackling something I'd been putting off for years. It was about taking control, reclaiming my space, and, let's be honest, feeling a little bit proud of myself. And you know what the best part was? The smell. That fresh, clean, new car smell. It wasn't actually a new car, of course, but it felt like it. It felt like a fresh start, a clean slate, a blank canvas upon which to, well, probably spill more coffee and drop more French fries. But hey, at least now I know how to clean them up. And, honestly, I'm looking forward to it. Not immediately, of course. Maybe in a year or two. But definitely before it reaches fossilized Cheerio status again. So, yeah, that's the story of the day I cleaned my car dashboard. It was a small victory, maybe, but it felt like a big one. And sometimes, those small victories are the ones that matter most, right? Now, whose turn is it to make tea? Mine's gone cold. And, you know, after all that cleaning, I deserve a treat, don't you think? You're one word away from surprising yourself. Think about that for a second. You might be hesitant, thinking you don't know enough, but trust me, one word can unlock a whole sentence, then another, and before you know it, you're having a conversation. Each word you learn is a step forward, a building block towards fluency. It's a journey, not a race, so embrace the process and enjoy the small victories along the way. And you know what? A fun way to practice is by giving pretend motivational speeches. Imagine yourself cooking dinner and suddenly, you're inspiring an imaginary audience with a powerful speech about the importance of perfectly cooked pasta. Or picture yourself walking the dog and delivering a heartfelt speech about the beauty of nature. It might seem silly, but it's surprisingly effective in building your confidence and vocabulary without any pressure. Getting overwhelmed with new vocabulary is totally normal. Honestly, it felt like magic when I first started understanding more English, but speaking felt like a whole different mountain to climb. It's like you have all these words swirling in your head, but they just won't come out when you need them. We've all been there, and it's okay to feel that way. Just remember, progress isn't always linear, and every small step counts. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak? I remember being at a coffee shop and listening to a conversation in English, nodding along like I understood everything. You will not believe what happened next. When the barista asked me for my order, my mind went blank. So, I'd love to hear from you. What's your strategy to overcome speaking fear in English? Sharing our tips and experiences can help us all grow together. Okay, so grab a cuppa, settle in, because I have a story to tell you. It's about this local workshop I went to, right? Sounds kinda mundane, I know, but trust me, it was anything but. It was an experience. A whole experience. See, I'd been feeling this itch, you know? Like I needed to do something, create something, learn something new. I'd been scrolling through community events online, mostly out of boredom, I'll admit, and stumbled across this pottery workshop. Pottery. Me? I can barely keep a houseplant alive, let alone mold clay into something beautiful. But there was something about the description, something about the warm, earthy photos of people covered in clay, laughing. It just called to me. So, on a whim, I signed up. The day of the workshop arrived, and I was a mix of nervous and excited. Picture this. A crisp autumn morning, the air smelling like fallen leaves and wood smoke. I drove to this little studio tucked away on a side street, a place I'd passed 100 times without ever noticing. It was this charming little building, with ivy crawling up the brick walls and huge, sun-drenched windows. I could already hear the murmur of voices inside. Stepping inside, the first thing that hit me was the smell. That wonderful, earthy scent of clay and something slightly sweet, maybe a glaze? The studio was even cozier than I'd imagined. There were shelves crammed with finished pieces, mugs, bowls, vases, even these whimsical little animal figurines. Everything looked so organic and imperfect, in the best possible way. And the people, a real mix, you know? Older folks, young students, a couple of moms with toddlers in tow, brave souls. Everyone was chatting and smiling, and I immediately felt this sense of belonging. Like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Our instructor, this woman named Sarah, was just radiant. Seriously, she looked like she'd been sculpted from clay herself, all warm smiles and flowing clothes. She started by showing us the different types of clay, earthenware, stoneware, porcelain, and explaining their properties. I'll be honest, most of it went over my head. I was too busy trying not to gawk at the giant lump of clay sitting on the wheel in front of me. It looked like a sleeping monster, just waiting to be awakened. Then came the moment of truth. Centering the clay. Sarah made it look so effortless, her hands moving with this graceful, almost hypnotic rhythm. But when I tried, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty. The clay wobbled, it spun off center, it threatened to launch itself across the room. I was a mess. Covered in clay, giggling nervously, feeling like a 5-year-old playing with Play-Doh. But Sarah, she was so patient. She gently guided my hands, showing me the right pressure, the right angle, the right everything. And slowly, miraculously, the clay started to obey. It began to take shape, to transform from a shapeless blob into something resembling a bowl. A very wonky, lopsided bowl, but still a bowl. And you know what? That feeling of creating something with my own 2 hands, it was intoxicating. I completely lost track of time. All my worries, all the little anxieties that usually buzz around in my head, just vanished. It was just me, the clay, and the rhythmic whir of the wheel. Pure bliss. Of course, there were mishaps. Plenty of them. At one point, my bowl decided it wanted to be a plate, and promptly collapsed in on itself. Another time, I accidentally added too much water and ended up with what looked suspiciously like clay soup. But each time, I just laughed it off, scraped the clay back together, and started again. There was no pressure, no judgment. Just this shared sense of joyful experimentation. We spent the rest of the morning shaping our creations, and let me tell you, the range of talent in that room was astonishing. There were people throwing perfect cylinders, crafting delicate teacups, sculpting intricate designs. And then there was me, with my slightly wonky, slightly misshapen, but utterly mine little bowl. After lunch, which we ate outside, surrounded by the warm autumn sunshine, we learned about glazing. Now, this was where things got really interesting. So many colors, so many textures, so many possibilities. I ended up choosing a deep turquoise glaze, because it reminded me of the ocean. And then, just for kicks, I added a little sprinkle of gold luster. Why not, right? Leaving the studio that day, I felt different. Lighter, somehow. More grounded. My hands were stained with clay, my clothes were speckled with glaze, and I had this silly grin plastered across my face. It was like I'd rediscovered some forgotten part of myself, some creative spark I didn't even know I had. A few weeks later, I got an email saying my bowl was ready to be picked up. I practically ran to the studio. And there it was, sitting on a shelf, waiting for me. My little, wonky, turquoise and gold bowl. It wasn't perfect, not by a long shot, but it was mine, and I loved it. Now, that bowl sits on my kitchen counter, filled with fruit. Every time I see it, it reminds me of that day, of the smell of clay and glaze, the whir of the wheel, the laughter and camaraderie of the other students. It reminds me of the joy of creating, the magic of transforming something simple into something beautiful. And it reminds me that sometimes the most unexpected experiences can be the most enriching. So, yeah, that's my pottery workshop story. Not so mundane after all, huh? What do you think? Maybe you should try it sometime. You never know what hidden talents you might discover. Just be prepared to get a little messy. And maybe bring an apron. You know, just in case. Okay, so, picture this. It's a scorcher of a day. I mean, scorcher. The kind of day where the air shimmers above the asphalt and you can practically fry an egg on the sidewalk. You know those days, right? The ones where all you want is something icy cold, something tangy, something lemony. I'm talking, of course, about lemonade. Now, I could have just popped down to the store, grabbed a carton of the pre-made stuff. Easy peasy, right? But something in me rebelled. It was one of those I'm gonna make something days. One of those days where I craved that feeling of accomplishment, that little spark of homemade magic. Plus, let's be honest, store-bought lemonade? Sometimes it's just too sweet, you know? Not enough zing. So, I decided. Homemade lemonade. It was happening. First hurdle? Lemons. Lots of lemons. I envisioned a pitcher brimming with sunshine yellow goodness, so I headed to the grocery store with a mission. The produce aisle was my battlefield. I rummaged through the bins, searching for the perfect specimens. Not too hard, not too soft, just right. You know how it is with lemons, some are just sad. I wanted happy lemons. Plump, vibrant, bursting with potential. I ended up with a bag overflowing with citrusy treasures. The scent hit me as soon as I got in the car, that sharp, clean, invigorating lemon perfume. It was a promise of things to come. Back at home, the real adventure began. I'd seen my grandma make lemonade countless times when I was a kid. She had this whole ritual, this almost magical process. But I'd never actually done it myself. So, I was relying on hazy memories and sheer willpower. First step, juicing. Now, my grandma had this ancient, heavy-duty juicer, a real workhorse. Me? I had a flimsy plastic handheld thing. It looked more like a toy than a kitchen utensil. I wrestled with those lemons, I tell you. Juice squirted everywhere. My hands were sticky, the counter was a disaster, I even managed to get a squirt in my eye. It stung like the dickens. I swear, those lemons were fighting back. But I persevered. Slowly but surely, a bowl filled with the most beautiful, golden liquid began to emerge. The scent was intoxicating. Pure sunshine. I dipped my finger in for a taste. Tart. So tart it made my lips pucker. But underneath that sharpness, there was a sweetness, a promise of something delicious. Okay, so, juicing done. Next challenge. Sugar. How much sugar? My grandma never used a recipe, it was all by feel, by instinct. She'd just pour and taste, pour and taste. Me? I panicked. Too much sugar, and it would be sickly sweet. Too little, and it would be, well, lemon juice. Not exactly refreshing. I decided to go with a medium amount. I poured the sugar into the lemon juice, stirring cautiously. It dissolved slowly, leaving a thick, syrupy residue on the spoon. I tasted it. Not bad. But something was missing. Then I remembered. My grandma always added a little something extra. A secret ingredient. What was it? I racked my brain, trying to conjure up the memory. Then it hit me. A pinch of salt. Just a tiny pinch. It sounds weird, I know, but trust me. It balances the sweetness, enhances the tartness. It's alchemy, pure lemonade alchemy. I added the salt, stirred, and tasted. Eureka! It was perfect. That perfect balance of sweet and tart, with a hint of something magical. But the journey wasn't over yet. My lemonade was still concentrated. Intense. It needed dilution. Water. Simple, right? Wrong. Too much water, and it would be weak and flavorless. Too little, and it would be, well, you know. Mouth-puckeringly tart. I poured in a little water, tasted. Nope, too strong. A little more. Still too strong. This went on for a while. I felt like a mad scientist, conducting some crucial experiment. Finally, I achieved the perfect ratio. The lemonade was the perfect shade of pale yellow, the perfect balance of sweet and tart. It was perfect. I poured it into a pitcher, added ice cubes, and took a long, slow sip. Ah, it was heavenly. So refreshing, so invigorating. It was exactly what I needed on that scorching hot day. But the best part? It wasn't just the lemonade itself. It was the process. The struggle with the lemons, the sugar dilemma, the salt epiphany. It was the feeling of accomplishment, of having created something delicious, something special, with my own 2 hands. It was a small victory, a tiny triumph. And it tasted so much sweeter because of it. You know, it's funny, isn't it? Something as simple as making lemonade can become an adventure. A story. A memory. And sometimes, those little things, those seemingly insignificant moments, are the ones that stick with us. The ones that bring a smile to our faces, even on the hottest of days. And guess what? I had so much lemonade left over, I ended up sharing it with my neighbors. They loved it. And you know what they said? They said it tasted like sunshine. And honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better compliment. Because that's exactly what it was. Liquid sunshine, made with a little bit of love, a lot of lemon juice, and a pinch of mischievous adventure. Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for watching and for spending this time with me. It really means a lot to have you here. If you'd like to stay connected and keep up with our daily English speaking and listening practice, remember to follow, like, subscribe, and share. You know, before we go, it made me wonder, do you have any surprises planned for someone? It is always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about, and sharing your plans is a wonderful way to practice expressing yourself in English and connect with everyone in the comments. See you tomorrow, and in the meantime, take care and keep practicing.